The first credit card I ever had was the Blue Cash Everyday card from American Express. And I got this credit card to pay for a business coach that I was working with at the time. Now, it's everybody's guess whether that was a good idea, whether that was a bad idea. For an 18-year-old with really no idea what I was doing and just knowing that I needed mentorship, it seemed like the only idea for me at the time. But having now spent so many years in that particular industry, I've realized just how many people are preying on young or otherwise totally unlearned people in order to grow their business. And we can have a debate on the ethics of that at another time. But the bottom line is I took out a credit card for the first time in my life, immediately put the max credit limit on that credit card, which was $2,000, and then proceeded to not be able to pay it off for another 2 years, which racked up a huge amount of interest, but I did ultimately pay it off. Now, when I did, my credit was shot, right? Afterwards, it was like totally destroyed. This was the only thing that had been on my credit report other than student loans, which we'll talk about soon. And my credit was shot. And I essentially wrote off credit for a long time. I was like, look, I'm going to grow a business. I'm going to get all this cash. It doesn't matter that my credit is bad. We'll worry about this down the road because all I know right now is that I need money. Got my little dog toy thrower here. And so I didn't worry about it for a really long time. I figured, hey, I'd paid it off. There was a zero balance. My credit might be like a 450 or something, but fuck it. It doesn't matter because I'm out of this. I'm over this, right? I was out of the business coaching relationship. I'd managed to pay it off. I was like, I'm scot-free. I'm good. I'm free, whatever. But I didn't realize that, credit is really important for a lot of things. Credit is important to be able to pay off medical bills should you have them. Credit is important if you want to take out a loan for a house or a car or a business for that matter, right? And so I realized over the next couple of years that, man, when it came to credit, I was essentially frozen. I couldn't do very much of anything that I wanted to do, right? And of course, I was far away from buying a house. But I was still in school and I was, trying to do various business opportunities that many of which I was shut out of because I had access to absolutely no money at all, not even credit. And so I realized that this was something that I was going to have to start to chip away at. It might not be this pressing problem for me right now, but eventually it is going to be a problem for me and I'm going to have to do something about it right now. So I started to learn about how to rebuild your credit. And in doing so, I learned that one of the best steps, or really the only step that I had in front of me at the time, was to get a secured credit card. So that's what I did. I took $600 and I put it on a secured credit line, which I believe was the venture secured card from Capital One. And I started from there, put $600 down, went about my life, right? I was regularly traveling. I was coaching people. I was a nomad of sorts. And so I didn't have that much money, but I also didn't really need that much money. So I knew that by taking as much, a sizable chunk of money for me at the time, right, and putting it on this credit card, that would be the place to start. So I took $600, I put it on this secured card from Capital One, which, by the way, a secured card is where you take a certain amount of money and you give the money to the credit card company, and that is essentially your line of credit. So I started out with a $600 line of credit. And then I put all of my small purchases on that. Gas, food, plane tickets, right? When I would buy plane tickets. Whatever it was that I had that was a smaller expense. And I know plane tickets aren't always a smaller expense, but for me at the time, that's what I was spending my money on. So I just started making those payments with the credit card and paying it off every single month. There was no plans for me to use this as a loan, right? I had made that mistake in the past. I was no longer sort of brainwashed by the ideals of the surface level social media business world, right? You spend money to make money. You gotta buy this course. You gotta spend money on this coaching to make the money back. And of course, for much of my career at this point, I have been a fitness coach, right? Fitness coaching is what I have predominantly made my money from, right? So I am by no means saying that coaching in its entirety is a scam. Even business coaching is not necessarily a scam, right? It's you can receive a huge amount of really valuable information that you can then use to make more money. And I highly recommend it for certain people in certain situations. But right out of the gate, if this is your first business ever, I don't recommend spending thousands of dollars on this sort of fictitious promise that you're going to make the money back. A lot of people in this space, especially the business coaching world, really thrive on that fantasy that this program that you're about to enter into, yes, it's expensive, but that expense is like a sacrifice that you're making for this better future. In many ways, that motivator is enough for people, but it wasn't enough for me, clearly, and it wasn't enough for a lot of people at that time. It's not enough for a lot of people at that time. I think people need a different kind of education. That's not what this video is about, though, right? So I had this secure credit card with $600 available to me, but I didn't use it for massive expenses or loans or anything. I was just using it intentionally to build my credit score back up, right? So that's what I did. Like I said, small purchases, regularly paying it off, making sure to pay it off every single month, so that interest didn't really stack up. But also making sure to maintain some debt on that credit card, because that actually shows that, hey, you're using this debt, right? You are actually leveraging this debt to grow your credit. Now, after I think about a year or 2 years of having that secured credit card, I proceeded to open another credit card, right? I think my credit score at this point was about a 600 or a 650, which allowed me to open up a Quicksilver credit card from Capital One. It's like the Quicksilver 5% cashback credit card. I still have it. Super phenomenal credit card. I mean, really, really useful. 5% cashback is actually crazy. People don't really realize that, I guess. But that credit card was what opened up the gates for me and really allowed me to start building up a strong credit score. So now I'm using this credit card to make bigger purchases, to actually pay off bills, to take on purchases that I know I couldn't pay off for a month or so at a time. Right? This credit card, I think, gave me access originally to $1,500 of credit. That line is now about $8,000 for me right now, I think. But I keep it super, super low. I keep the debt ratio always under $1,000, no matter what. I try to keep the debt ratio a little bit under 500, but things come up. But what really changed in my mind was the belief, right? The belief that spending this large amount of money would guarantee a return on investment. Now, this might be just like a business owner's mentality. This might just be the mentality that I had because I was a new business owner. Even now, to some degree, I sort of had this mentality of like, okay, if I invest X amount of money, I can expect to receive X amount back. But it was sort of the fantasy originally that got me, right? Which is just sort of this etheric divine promise that you invest generally in your business, and then you should get that money back. I'm not saying I don't believe in miracles anymore, but I don't know if that is the best approach to take to build a money-making vehicle, or really to have predictable or safe income or finances in general, right? So that's the first thing that I would say is like one of the big lessons to those of you that are new business owners, or those of you that sort of exist in this more manifesty space. Be really careful allowing yourself to make purchases on a promise without like a logical strategy behind it, right? Big investments are never worth it usually if there is no ROI. So I know a lot of people like talk about treating themselves with some kind of piece of furniture or some kind of car or something. You really have to make sure that you're always shopping within your income range. If you have no income, you should not be spending any fucking money at all. People say like, well, what about food? I would say, do you have food stamps? If you don't have food stamps, I would say, do you know where your local food bank is? If you don't know where your local food bank is and you're not on food stamps, you really need to start there, right? You need to be keeping your debt to finances ratio as low as possible. I mean, that's really what's worked for me at this point, right? I simply shifted my mindset from there's going to be this magical return on investment to like, my number one focus needs to be income. I need to do whatever it it is possible for me to increase my income or guarantee my income. If you don't have any job right now, you need to get a job. We talk a lot about addiction on this channel, and I haven't talked about it too much, but my belief genuinely is that, you know, getting a job is one of the best and first steps that you need to make for your self-development. If you don't have an obligation that's asking you to show up at the same time every single day, you know, especially an obligation that's paying your bills to some degree, right? That will be one of the most important steps for your personal discipline and your personal sense of accountability that you can work towards, right? But when it comes to credit, that job is going to ensure that you can guarantee that credit card payoff, right? So, you know, after I spent a few years like really working with that Quicksilver card, I was putting more money onto it. I was using it to pay off bigger expenses, often expenses that I didn't anticipate to be able to pay off for at least a couple of months at a time. And I factored in the APR as well, right? Like you really need to make sure you know what your monthly APR is. So you know that if you maintain money on that card over to the next month, here's what the increase in that price is going to be, right? And sometimes that's worth it for various purchases, right? But I spent a couple years with just that Quicksilver card. I then, once I had used that Quicksilver card to build up my credit to about a 680, I went ahead and got a Venture X Travel Rewards card from Capital One. I figured I was traveling a lot. I was going overseas relatively often. I was going to the West Coast from the East Coast of the US a lot. And so I was like, okay, well, what's up with these travel reward credit cards? Is this going to be worth it? And I had an opportunity from Capital One to take out a really large credit line, which was, I think, $20,000 at the time. I don't know what it is now, but I've had that credit card for 2 years now, so I would assume that it's higher. Who knows? But essentially, I was just like, I know that the more lines of credit that you have, the larger they are, the better your credit score is, right? So I was like, fuck it. It's about time for me to start to work my way up again anyway. So I took out another credit card, and that is the Venture X Travel Rewards card. And so what I tried to do at that point was I tried to cycle over a lot of my larger expenditures to that credit card. So there are certain things that I'm not going to disclose on this channel, right? Let me just say out of the gate that business expenses must be made on business credit cards or business debit cards, right? Business expenses must always be made through business financial vehicles. Now, you might be listening to the story and thinking, okay, so where are the business credit cards? Well, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I did not know what I was doing, and I didn't know how to do things correctly. Really throughout most of the story, right? And so the next plan that I had was to use this Venture X Travel Rewards credit card for most of my quote unquote business expenses. So I shifted them over from the other card to this card, not like an asset or a debt transference. A lot of the time you can do like a credit card debt transference from one card to another card to shift over the APR rewards or whatever it was. I didn't do that. I just started buying business related stuff with this new credit card, right? So after having done that for a little while, I sort of shifted back to just focusing on which credit card had the best rewards based on what it is that I was buying. So travel, hotels, food, especially food outside of where I was staying at the time. I kind of just mentally started doing all of that with the Venture X Travel Rewards card, right? Major expenses like groceries, bills, those kinds of things, even to this day, have stayed on the Quicksilver cashback rewards card, right? And so in taking on some of the expenses with the new credit card, I was able to even further blast off my credit score. So we're kind of rounding out this story. This was one of those videos where I was like, hey, it's just important to kind of talk about good credit. I don't know exactly where I'm going with this. But the bottom line is, in using that new credit score, I was able to ultimately launch my credit score to where it is now, which is about an 800, right? I want to talk about a few factors in here because I just kind of shared a story that it's like, oh, you used a bunch of credit cards. That's great. Well, what are the lessons here? So the first lesson that I'm going to talk about, I didn't mention it all in this video, well, maybe at the beginning, which was student loans. Now, I had, for a long time, I was very lucky to be able to go to school for very, very little money. I went tuition free, and I just had to pay for room and board. And I did take out student loans to, be able to live on campus and eat food, right? And so in doing that, I racked up, I forget exactly what the total amount was. I racked up about $15,000 in student loans. Now, over the years, I have continued to pay those down and maintain very little interest payments by using whatever various school save plans, by re-enrolling a couple of times, actually. But I have these incredibly low payment student loans that right now it's about $10,000 of debt, right? And one of the things that I didn't really realize until just a couple of years ago was that was actually tremendously helping my credit score, right? By having a massive credit line, right? And I think my total student loan allowance between 4 loans is like $70,000 or something. But it's a massive line of credit, of which I am only using 1/7 of, right? And I'd always in my head be like, oh fuck, I gotta do whatever I can to pay off my student loans. But then I heard a couple stories from folks who paid their student loans off and they saw a massive hit to their credit. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna try to maintain these. And actually that has turned out to be a stellar benefit to my position. Again, considering that all of what credit is simply how much total credit are you allowed, right? So between I have a lot of credit cards, actually. I think I have 4 credit cards, of which I am using like 1/20th of the total debt. Yeah. So I have my original secured card still. I have a Capital One Quicksilver cashback card. I have a Venture X travel rewards card from Capital One, and then I also have another credit card from American Express that I opened up relatively recently, but I haven't even touched it. It's just that I kind of do this credit cycling thing to keep building up my credit score. But all of this is just like lines of credit, and then how much of that line of credit have you actually used? And I just keep that number super freaking small. So how has this actually benefited me? Well, number one, it's made it very possible to get out of a lot of really hairy situations. So in terms of like housing, in terms of travel, I've lived this very nomadic lifestyle for the last 10 years. And there have been points where my income was so low that I was actually stuck in certain places, right? I literally used a credit card to buy a plane ticket or buy a bus ticket and get myself out of that particular situation. So housing's been a huge one. Housing has been the biggest one for me, personally. Business is another big one. So sometimes being able to buy advertising or purchase like a session with a business advisor, those things have really helped me a lot. I couldn't speak highly of that kind of process enough. I mean, I know at the beginning of this call, or this call, at the beginning of this video, I talked about how, paying for a business coach was one of the worst decisions that I made. And I actually made that decision 3 different times in just the most predatory of relationship, right? In terms of like what the coach was asking me to invest, what they were actually giving me in return. I mean, a lot of this stuff was really sold on dreams. And I will make a video about this stuff in the future if you guys are interested. If you're like, hey, I've been thinking about a business coach. I don't know if it's like the best decision. I'm kind of teetering on the edge. I'd be happy to make a video about that and kind of my thoughts and how you should navigate it. Because I do think it's a phenomenal decision in many circumstances. However, if you're brand new, if the price tag is like $2,000 or more, it's often you're often justifying it through this fantasy of what you could obtain rather than like logically what are you likely to obtain should you exactly do the amount of work, blah, blah, blah. But those kinds of expenditures have been important for me at certain times, right? Especially when it comes to like advertising or paying for infrastructure, or especially like one-off communication with somebody. It's been worth it. And credit has allowed me to make some of those decisions and pay for them when I didn't have like a lump sum available, or it wouldn't have been a good idea to like spend all of my money, right? That's where credit really comes in. Other kinds of business expenses, like if you want to buy a vehicle or some kind of equipment, business credit is just unbeatable. And you need like really strong personal credit to be able to obtain business credit. And that's one of the things that I would say, just in terms of graduating to a more mature mentality in general, right? If you need to buy a bigger car, if you need to, move and you don't have all of the money to purchase a house or put the down payment or, put the deposit in for your rent, this is where credit is going to be really, really important stuff. And so my recommendation would be that if you're watching this and you're like, yeah, I don't really know what I'm getting out of this video, right? My credit's either okay or not very good, and I just haven't really worried too much about that. These are just kind of some bits of feedback that have been important for me that, might be important for you long term. Now, to get started, I would say that first thing, you really need to analyze your spending habits, right? You really need to make sure that right now, just in general, if you don't have the discipline to, like save more, or you're saving more than you spend, you don't have that discipline yet. That's the first thing that you need to start with. I don't know how to, you need to be the one that makes that decision for yourself, right? Like discipline, maturity. These are things that I can help you with, right? That we can make, we can talk about in these videos. But at the end of the day, if you know that you consistently spend frivolously, like a bad habit, like we talk a lot about smoking weed on this video. If you spend money, if you have that sort of relationship with spending money, right? So like right now, if you're like, I can't control my weed usage, or I can't control my drinking or something, and spending money's like that for you, right? Like you do make more than you could be making more than you spend, right? But you just don't. You don't have that discipline. That's got to be the first place that you start, man, because the only thing that a credit card is going to do, if you don't change that habit pattern, it's just going to fuck your life up, right? Like credit cards and debt is probably one of the fastest ways to financial slavery for most people. And most people in culture do look at loans and credit cards through that lens, right? A lot of culture, we kind of look at these things through a critical lens because we're afraid of self-accountability, right? The reality is that most people are in debt because they let their expenditures get out of control. Now, I'm not saying that America is affordable. I'm not saying that the healthcare system is fair or any of these kinds of things. And I know that many people are essentially in debt by virtue of requirement, right? They're not in debt because they're fucking stupid or they're, irresponsible or something. They're in debt because they have to be. And so if you're watching this video and you're like, I literally have no other path to paying for my kid's medication or, staying clothed, that's a problem in and of itself. And just me telling you, hey, spend your money better, that's not going to be the solution. But for those of you that are, especially those of you that are single, that are abled, right, that are working and consistently making an income of some kind, right? In your heart of hearts whether you are spending frivolously, right? Listening to this video, do I count as one of the people that just needs to be more responsible and figure this stuff out for themselves? If the answer is yes, you're sitting on your hands, and it's not good, right? I don't know how else to say that. Like, time is always running out. And, I hate to be one of those people that's like, stop waiting around, time's running out, like life is short and all this stuff. But the fact is that you have infinite opportunities in this life. You're going to have many opportunities to purchase a house, to start a business, right? To be in a financial position that's much better so that you can start a family or live somewhere else, right? Really pursue your dreams. Having having financial opportunity like that is going to be really, really helpful. I mean, it's been helpful for me so incredibly much, even just at this age, at 28 years old. And I haven't really done too much with it, right? I don't have, I didn't use my credit to buy a house. I haven't used my credit to make a massive business gamble. But having credit has allowed me to maintain money in my account that I have used for more kind of gambly decisions. And those gambles have really turned out, right? And that was the joining of education and opportunity, but also being financially prepared, such that, when Bitcoin was really on the rise back in 2018, I had the cash available that I could buy multiple Bitcoin before it took off, right? That was really beneficial for me. That kind of investing platform has been so incredibly beneficial for multiple investments. Multiple stocks that I've watched over the years have IPO'd, and I was positioned properly because I didn't need to use the cash that I had to pay for my bills or to pay for food. I could use credit to do that and then have more money later on. Sorry, my dog is going nuts, playing in the water. But all of these things were made possible because I had access to credit, right? And so this is me again. I know this video is like a clusterfuck of just so many points all over the place, but really begin just by getting that secured card, right? Getting your credit locked down. Make sure that you are constantly positioning yourself to be prepared for more income. If you are making more money, you're going to be a whole lot safer to take on some of these kinds of loans that you can use to do things. And you're going to be able to catch that interest debt, right? It's not going to get away from you because you actually have an income. And then, so just start by building up good discipline of paying off that debt, and then go for higher credit cards, right? Take out more credit cards. You have access to larger lines of credit that will ultimately build up a much larger credit score and base of potential credit. But you do all of this by protecting yourself with good habits, right? Good spending habits. Do not spend frivolously. Be mindful of whether you need things, whether you're just wanting things, especially whether stuff like material items kind of creates a sense of fulfillment and importance for you, right? If a lot of your self-importance and your self-value is placed on the way that you dress, or it's placed on what kind of car that you drive or what kind of house that you live in, and especially if logically you just know this shit is not within your financial purview. And I'm not saying don't dress nice or drive a piece of shit car. The fact of the matter is you can get a pretty good car for pretty cheap and then put the TLC into it to make it look really nice, right? Same thing with dressing. You can shop at Goodwill or the Salvation Army thrift store or these other kinds of thrift stores and still find nice clothes and still really be considerate of the way that you formulate your wardrobe. Not like me. My girlfriend's helping me out with that, but these are the kinds of things that these kinds of sort of frivolous, more what's the word that I want? More like visual aesthetic. I don't know. These kinds of things are what will really screw you over, right? When you don't have conscious control over yourself and your self-worth that is outside of material things, it becomes really, really dangerous, because unless you're a physician or you're somebody making hundreds of thousands of dollars, you're going to find yourself over your head and underwater, right? And so if you guys want, I can make a video going deeper into sort of financial hygiene and how to manage the way that you spend, how to focus your time and your effort on always bringing in new opportunities. Because I do think that new opportunity is a really, really good way to give yourself that feeling, at least, of progress, and affords you more safety, right? And I think it's a habit, and I think you need to figure out how to make the time and stay disciplined to that kind of a practice. And we can talk about that in another video if you want. But I think I've dropped some solid tips. I've given you my story. And yeah, if you guys have any comments or questions, let me know. But this has been the way that my life has been tremendously benefited from being financially responsible and further trying to build up my credit. And so if that's something that you're interested in, let me know. You can shoot me an email. You can drop me a comment here. But without further ado, my friends, much love. Namaste. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that notification bell so you know when my videos come out. And you're doing a great job. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.